Okay, so you're sitting on a fully loaded jumbo jet and the pilot comes across the intercom and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a licensed pilot, but most of my experience has been in a small single-engine aircraft. However, I did watch a YouTube video before we left the gate." So how many of you are going to stay in that aircraft? Not many, I'm sure. So why should investigators be any different? Yet every day, people hire investigators based solely on a license they received maybe 15 years ago and never ask about training, continuing education, or qualifications. Hi, I'm Tim Farrow with Advanced Protective Services, and welcome to Tidbit Tuesday. In our previous episodes, we discussed licensing, insurance, experience, pricing, and questions you should ask a private investigator before you hire them. Today we're going to discuss something many people kind of overlook: training, continuing education, and qualifications. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions people have is believing that once someone gets a private investigator license, they're automatically qualified forever. That's not exactly how professional development works. A license is often the minimum requirement for entering into the profession. Training is what helps someone stay effective in it. One thing many people don't realize is that training requirements vary significantly from state to state. Some states require extensive training, testing, experience, and continuing education. Other states require very little, and there's a handful of states that don't even maintain a statewide private investigative licensing program. So while a license is important, it doesn't necessarily tell you how much training an investigator has received or what they've done to stay current. One of the best questions you can ask an investigator is, what training have you completed recently? Notice I didn't say 10 years ago, I said recently. That's because technology changes, laws change, court decisions change, interview or investigative techniques change. The best investigators never stop learning. When evaluating an investigator, ask about training and in areas such as surveillance techniques, interview and statement analysis, maybe digital forensics, evidence handling, or legal updates, just to name a few. A professional investigator should be investing in their education just like any other professional. Now, let's address a common misconception. People often assume that because someone has a police officer or was a police officer, they automatically make a great private investigator. Law enforcement experience can be extremely valuable. Many outstanding investigators came from law enforcement backgrounds, but being a police officer and being a private investigator is not the same job. Police academies primarily teach police procedures, not investigative methodologies. The skills taught at police academies are important and can be very useful in the field, but they're not necessarily the same skills required to conduct complex civil investigations, long-term surveillance operations, corporate investigations, or litigation support. A patrol officer may be excellent at public safety, responding to calls, de-escalation, and law enforcement patrol techniques. However, many private investigators involve civil matters that law enforcement may never handle during the course of a typical patrol career. In the same way that not every attorney practices the same type of law, nor does every law enforcement officer perform the same type of investigations on street investigative work. The question isn't, were you a police officer? The better question is, what investigative experience do you have, and how does that apply to my case? An investigator who specializes in domestic investigations, fraud investigations, or missing persons, or even insurance investigations may have very different skills and training from someone who primarily works in digital forensics. Always ask how their training and experience apply to your specific situation. You may also want to ask about professional certifications, instructor credentials, specialized schools, industry associations, or advanced investigative training and continuing education. While certification alone doesn't guarantee competence, they often demonstrate a commitment to professional growth. When evaluating an investigator, don't just ask, "Are you licensed?" Ask, "What have you done to stay current?" Now, the answer may tell you more than the license hanging on the wall. A license may get someone into the profession. Training, continuing education, and professional development help determine how effective they become. When you're choosing an investigator, don't just look at their past. Look at what they've done today to stay sharp, stay current, and stay professional. Investigations are really about patterns. Patterns of time, patterns of money, and patterns of behavior. If you follow those patterns long enough, they'll usually take you to exactly where the truth is hiding. Thank you, and we'll see you next Tuesday.